Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Today, we have come up with yet another section for breaking into InfoSec. Now, there are many roles that we've been discussing, and there are some technical, there are some non-technical roles with soft skills. So today, there is one role which is very new to me, but it's not a new role and an interesting one. I can say that I've just got onboarded to this role and I totally love it. And today we have a veteran in this role with us who is Developer Steve. And yes, you heard it right. So he has a developer in his name, but I would let him speak more about it. Steve, over to you.
Hello. Yeah, that is correct. And it's so wonderful to be here. That is correct. I do have developer, my middle name is Developersteve. So I've been a developer advocate for a number of years now, currently senior developer advocate at Sneak. But previously I was developer advocate at PayPal Braintree, at Xero, at Telstra, which is an Australian-based telecommunications company where I'm based. And also IBM as well. And like as a developer advocate, I get to do a lot of conference talks, a lot of meetup talks, or as I like to think of it, I get to geek out with developers all over the world in all different community groups. So after doing it for so many years, people just started calling me Developer Steve. So when I got married a few years ago, I legally changed my name, took on a married name. So me and my wife put our names together, Cooper plus Houchen became Kuchen. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to make Developersteve my middle name while I'm there. So I did. So that's my story.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. And today we're going to talk about getting into InfoSec with a role that's called DevRel, Developer Relations, SecRel, which is Security Relations, or DevSecRel, like we are doing, Developer Relations, Security Relations, and whatnot. So, Steve, I'm going to go from a point of view wherein if I am a student who has no background in security and even developer relations, what would be your first advice to them? Like, how can you break into this role?
That's a really good question. And I think one way I always love seeing people break into developer roles, DevRel roles, or security roles is by learning from a lot of the open communities that we're always a part of. And we see this through the communities too, is just a very open, they're very open and very open to sharing knowledge, very open to learning, kind of with the mentality and approach in particular in those groups always is, and I love this bit the most, is we all learn together, we all fail together, but we all go through the journey together, which I love. That like that is open source, and I've been doing open source for many years. That's still one of my favorite things. One thing in particular I always like to see, in particularly with students, is showing what they know. Like deploy a project, build out a demo, build out something that other people can learn from as well, and just share back. And of course, always giving conference talks or meetup talks. Like, don't have to be scared. These are friends. I literally, every time I do a talk, it's just me geeking out with friends. That's always how I look at it.
And if, let's say, I'm coming from a different background into cybersecurity, or I want to go for this role, what should they do first? Like speaking at a conference, meetups, or what else they can do so that they can actually move to this role?
I think one of the there's a few ways I think you can always look to pivot yourself, and one way I always like to do this, and I've done this a few times. I spent 10 years as a data analyst one time, and then became a developer. Although I'd been writing code since I was 8, but anyway, whole other story. I think it's important to get hands-on, share knowledge, but also be able to sort of build out examples of what you're doing. And yeah, make that publicly available, etc. But ideally, like just get close to industry folks, learn what they know, learn how they approached it. There's some fantastic courses available like throughout the internet. A lot of them are free too, where you can get in, learn some new stuff. Then you can take that back to the communities you're a part of and be able to share that back into.
Yeah, and the most interesting part is there any certification needed for it? Because I can feel a sense that there's no certification that is needed to join it, but any suggestions or what's your inputs around certifications or anything that they can do, homework
This
around
is
it?
this is a really interesting question because full disclaimer, I'm completely self-taught. So um, I'm not going to say no and I'm not going to say yes to this because everyone has a different learning journey, a different learning path, or like the way I always think about it, particularly as a developer origin story if we think of the Marvel universe. But the I think this is always an interesting question because again, it comes back to your individual learning styles, patterns, etc. Quite often, what I see from a lot of the certifications is the discipline that it brings with it. So it's important to take those disciplines and learnings and then adapt that to the likes of the open source world where you can apply the same methodology but learn new techniques. As we know, sort of industry wide, stuff changes by the second. So something you're doing right now in 5 minutes time, you may not be doing. No, it doesn't change that quickly yet, but the industry is always evolving. So it's important to take those methodologies, take those learnings from that certification, and then apply those to the real world industry.
Yeah, and let's say now someone has entered into this field. So how exactly the career progression looks like? What would be the next step? Right now, you are a DevRel, you are a SecRel. So what are the leadership roles which are available, which people can look for, or maybe individual contributor roles also?
Yeah, another really good question. I've got a few thoughts on this one. So I guess one of the things, and going back to what my last point too, is the industry is always evolving. There is always new techniques. There is always new methods and approaches appearing all the time. In security, for example, we're starting to see an emergence of artificial intelligence, machine learning processes to identify red team, blue team sort of practices. So, which then begs the question in the days ahead, do we have like a data science security role that suddenly starts to appear as well? So I think it's important to always be looking ahead at the emerging trends and then knowing how to position yourself into those areas of interest. And I think just with that, what I just said there with areas of interest, for me personally, I always love going into or branching into different career aspects that interest me, like as a dev. Whatever excites your inner geek, you're in a dev, or you're in a security person. That's one way I always approach any sort of pivot is, do I love doing this? Because I mean, you got to do it all the time and you got to be passionate about it as well. I think the other thing, particularly with progression inside more, going to say, stable lines, is then also taking the same approach. Like, is team management something you're really good at? You really like doing? Is pen testing something you really want to keep doing and become a senior at? Like, important thing is identify your strengths and weaknesses and things you like doing, and then follow that.
Yeah, and before we part, can you please recommend some podcasts, newsletters, or maybe some books or talks which you really like and feel people should look at?
Um, the first one that comes to mind, and I'm totally going to be biased here and say the Secure Developer with Guy, which is on from the DevSecOn crew. I always love listening to that one. That's one of my favorites. Oh, what else is there? Oh, I can't think of any others off the top of my head. There's actually a few good cloud ones that I've been actually Cloud with Chris. I was on that one recently, and also I've watched some of his past episodes. Not so much security related, but definitely cloud related. And yeah, his approach to interviewing and getting some really interesting guests on, I always love that. But there's some great, great security podcasts around. I'd actually find out when for those out there that are going to meetups, conferences, etc. There's always a lot of podcast people or stuff that within those communities that are always being published too. So I would check those out, particularly being part of those groups. And yeah, just remember to always contribute back as well, and where you can. just add something back into the community, even if it's just sharing some learnings that you've done, you've had, things you've found. One of the things that I always have found very interesting is the more you do that, the more people will see things, identify things that you do that they may not necessarily be thinking of doing or have even thought of doing. Just even little things like using a command line in a particular way or using Kali Linux in a particular way. But just through you doing demonstrations, like people learn from that, and then you learn the things they learn. Actually, that's a bit meta, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there anything that you would like to share with the audience, which you feel that I might have missed or should be added to it? Or there's something that you want to talk about your talk or something that you're going to be giving?
Always remember to scan your code. No, well, I mean, you should do that anyway. But probably the most prominent thing, particularly starting out in the wider tech industry, is just always be learning. Again, like identify things that you really enjoy doing, things that you are passionate about, and follow that through the industry. And just remember to contribute back where you can. Also, please have you build your own website. Oh, I see so many people that don't do this. Always remember, like, it's so easy to, yeah, always remember to build your own website. It's so easy to spin something up, even just get a domain name, point it at a Git page somewhere, like just have your own site. It's great to put on your CV and very easy to do.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I started my website like two years back. And before that, I was doing everything on the social media and maybe on my resume. But then there's something that clicked that what if this platform goes down? What if that
Yeah.
platform goes down? But your website, your code, your static content, or maybe dynamic content, that'll stay there, right? You'll have a backup. You maintain your website wherein you can keep everything, which is good.
Yeah, and like put all your social media links on there, put examples of your work on there. The site itself is an example of something you've done. And I always remind developers about that one. It's like, build your own website.
Yeah, totally agree with you. And it's always wonderful to chat with you, Steve. And then we just actually missed out your jokes today around uh, getting into developer relations.
Oh, did you want a tech joke as we
Yeah,
close
yeah.
out? I have to give you one
Ab-
now. Well, let's go with the classic. So, Vendetta, why did the vulnerability get tired?
Maybe we were finding it again and again.
No, because it ransomware.
All right. Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Steve, for joining me today. It was wonderful
Thank
to
you.
have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.